So what is up guys, Nick here helping you to master your technology. In this episode, I want to talk about my experience with the iPhone 14 Pro Max 1 month later. Now I've tried to give you my fairest review and my honest review where I discussed everything I experienced with it in my review period. But now that I've had it for, around a month, I want to tell you what I think about it and if I think personally this was really worth it for me. Now, I'll tell you right away that this phone right here is definitely something that is somewhat of a controversial design choice with the pill for some people, but also, this phone retains a lot of what people love about iPhone in having the same type of software, same type of design, similar upgrades to camera year over year. So there are some controversial things like the pill, but also a lot of people seem to like it. And then there's things that are very similar to last year. Now, I will tell you though, for me, objectively, 1 month later, it was definitely worth it. I'll tell you this because even though the price is very high for this phone, as a content creator, I do like that they improved the cameras once again, giving us the Pro RAW feature in here for 48 megapixels. Just having an improvement on camera every year is always good. I'm actually shooting this video right now that you're seeing in 4K 60 on the iPhone 14 Pro in deep purple. I do think that these 14 Pro models are excellent choices for content creators, and as somebody who has went through multiple cameras over the years, I'm getting to a point where I'm not even buying cameras anymore. Seriously, I'm just buying iPhones and using them as cameras as well as my old stock of cameras that I do have for the channel, because at this point they're so good. The video is pretty much good enough for most content creation, so I definitely do like it for that reason. I don't think it's the best upgrade if you guys have a 13 Pro Max, unless you're getting a sweet carrier deal, or if not, I would just hold on to the 13 Pro Max. I don't think it's really that worth it. And over my past month, I do have to say I've really enjoyed the space black colorway. I think it's pretty awesome. And I do like deep purple as well, but for real, this space black is really nice. I do like the sides, they're a lot darker than the graphite. So definitely looks a little bit more professional, I feel like, this year with the space black and the deep purple. So when it comes to the dynamic island, I do have to say that I have enjoyed it somewhat. Interacting with it does give you a new experience with your iPhone, and I do think it definitely lets you know that you're not using last year's model. It's definitely something that is interactive. You can see it's taking a feature that would typically just be a pill up there with a camera and at least letting you interact with it, at least until Apple comes up with a different solution. And however, I wouldn't say that I'm just stuck on this phone only because of that. Like, I could easily switch to another phone and not think twice about Dynamic Island. Now, when it comes to the actual brightness of this phone, I do gotta say it's been bittersweet. Sweet in that it's incredibly bright. I mean, this thing outdoors, and even right there you can see it's ridiculous. The thing gets to 2000 nits. However, it definitely does drain some battery life. So that's definitely something I'm not happy about, and I find the iPhone 14 Plus to definitely give me better battery life. But here's the thing, I don't really care as long as the phone could get me through a full day. This phone achieved that. Now, I have to say though, it wasn't as impressive as last year when I first got my iPhone 13 Pro Max. That thing was going a little bit further. Also, I do have to mention that, this always on display does drain about 3 to 4% throughout the day. So definitely something you're going to notice. But they try to emulate how the Apple Watch's always on display does work, whereas they kind of light up the screen, just kind of dimming it a little bit. But a lot of people say this is too bright. However, this is definitely something I like when I have it on the desk, when I'm working with the laptop or whatever, just to kind of glance at the time, because I don't always want to be doing this with the wrist all day. And yes, I could just do that, but at the same time, it's kind of a nice feature in that area. But other than that, I actually found this to be a little bit distracting, because if you take a look at this and you just kind of quickly glance at it, it definitely does look quite bright, like it's kind of on. So I found myself actually clicking this button kind of like this to see what the heck, that thing's still on? No, it was actually just the always on display. So if I'm being totally honest with you, what I basically did was just turned off always on display on this phone in my month of using it. Other than that, I will say there have been quite a few pros about this iPhone Pro's display, and one of them being is that it has really good sharpness. It has the highest pixel density of any iPhone out right now. It's incredibly smooth. That 120 Hz ProMotion combined with iOS, it's the smoothest phone on the market. The Pixel 7 Pro is right up there with it though. That thing's pretty boss and impressive as well. But for iPhone land, this thing is the smoothest thing in the world right here. So definitely really enjoy it. And I think you will too, in terms of just pure display quality. I will say that the pill has been a little bit more distracting in that I can see it a little bit more. When I'm watching content in the landscape mode, my eye tends to be drawn to this pill a little bit more than the notch was. And that's because the notch kind of faded out. And I talked about that in the review, but I even caught myself earlier. I'm watching a video earlier today before filming this video, and my eye just kept looking at this thing. But it just looks like a vitamin supplement to me. But other than that, I mean, I've gotten over it, but I like the interactions with it. But when it comes to watching media, I kind of prefer just going on my iPad because I keep looking at this thing. So a month later with the iPhone 14 Pro Max in software. I talked about in my reviews, basically the only thing different between this and any other iPhone is that you are going to have those different camera modes within the camera settings. But I've been enjoying the lock screens. I've been enjoying switching them out depending on how I'm feeling. And I do like that we're getting a little more customization action here with the newer iOS 16. But you don't have to buy this phone to get this. But other than that, I do like that they have their own collection of wallpapers. A little annoyed that my older iPhones have kind of removed these. Apple removed the collection of wallpapers. App library still works pretty fantastic and still a simple iOS experience on the home screens along with having some widget support. So overall, the software doesn't really feel like anything different. It just kind of feels like every year you're just going to basically the same thing, and the same thing because your older iPhone typically gets the updates. So I don't have much else to say about software. You know it's smooth, you know it's secure, and you know it gets updated, and you know how iOS works at this point. Performance. Now, I've even mentioned before, A15, A16, it's really hard to tell the difference, and the truth is it is. But there's one thing I noticed about this phone, and I don't know what it is. It might just be in my brain, but it just feels a little snappier with everything it does. I think it's just like a millisecond or something, but everything just feels a little bit quicker. And one thing I really, really love about the iPhone 14 Pro Max and 14 Plus models, any of the iPhone 14 models, is that they improve the thermal design of the CPU. Essentially, this is the coolest to the touch iPhone I've ever seen. Also, when you brighten the display up, it still doesn't get warm and it doesn't really dim that often like it used to. So the thermal design is amazing in this phone. Reminds me a lot of what they're doing on the M series chips for Macs, where they barely ever get hot, they barely ever turn their fans on. Well, on the iPhone, they never really had fans to begin with, but they did get warm, and this one definitely doesn't get warm. That's something that can change in the long haul, so I'm gonna have to see how warm this gets in a couple of years from now. But right now, I gotta tell you, if you pick this phone up, it's one of the coolest to the touch. Even my new S22 Ultra this year and a couple other Samsung phones I tried, when I first was setting them up and I use them sometimes, they still get warm. This one, not so much. So I touched on the battery health a little bit earlier, talking how it gets through a day, and that's good enough for me. I just gotta say, it makes it. It makes it for me. It gives me better battery life than the Pro I'm actually recording this video on. It's not better than the 14 Plus though. So if you want the better battery life, you're gonna have to sacrifice the 120 Hertz and sacrifice the extra camera. Go get the Plus. You're gonna be more happy. That phone is more impressive, like the 13 Pro Max. This one, it feels like you're paying a little bit with that brighter screen in the form of a little bit more battery drain. We're not talking a ton of battery drain. We're talking an hour or so difference in screen time. That's what I've seen in my experience. And overall, I just got to say that the iPhone 14 Pro Max is a one-day phone for me. Now, when it comes to the cameras, I will say I don't really like that every year these camera bumps are getting larger. They're making my cases have thicker plastic on them, and just overall they just stick out of the body a lot. But I'm willing to accept that just because of how good the actual results are. But if they could find a way to make the cameras a little bit less bulging but still give me great quality, that would be awesome. But man, the results, I gotta tell you, on the 14 Pro Max are out of this world. At this point, these photos are so good, you don't need to buy a camera. Like, straight up, I'm showing you samples right here. If you buy a point and shoot camera, you're just throwing money away at this point if you already have an iPhone 14 Pro or Pro Max. If you don't have enough storage, offload that storage to the cloud or offload it to an external SSD, and then and then you get a bunch more storage back and you could take more photos. So at this point, I'm not buying no more cameras. That's just that. I mean, I may buy a Sony A series just for my studio videos, but I'm saying like just for everyday usage, I don't think I'm ever buying a camera again for the rest of my life if they keep making cameras like this for smartphones. I mean, it doesn't get better than this. I mean, you don't have to know what you're doing that much. Like I know how to use a camera like at a pro level, but I like that I don't really have to do that when I'm using the iPhone. Look at this. I'm just pointing and shooting, and look at these results. Look at the dynamic range. Look at the sharpness on these photos. That's the John Hancock building. I mean, just take a look at this. It's clear. Everything is just amazing on here. The video looks sharp at 4K 60. If you want to do cinematic stuff, that's amazing. And I really do like the fact that if I go ahead, and I do like the fact that the front-facing camera also improves. I actually haven't done my vlogs yet. I'm starting to think about doing some battery test vlogs, so let me know if you want to see those, because these cameras, I just want to try them out so bad. I haven't had time yet. You can see, just focuses on the face good, everything, man. It's just everything about it. This thing is the total package when it comes to the camera, missing one thing some people won't like, and that is the best zoom. This thing tops out at a max of 15x. Mention the action mode. This literally, I'm not buying an action camera no more either. Straight up, I'm done. I'm done with, I actually have a couple of them, but I'm getting rid of them. I'm done with them. You know, you just don't need one at this point. You could just strap this onto some, you know, accessories and you got your action mode right here. Super smooth like a gimbal and phone calls. I mean, they also improved the Qualcomm modem in here. It's a Qualcomm X65 modem. I'm getting better signal strength. I'm missing one bar here today, but overall, I'm just getting better phone call quality, great audio speakers on here. It's just a better experience this year once again, and it doesn't get too warm, like I said. So when you're making calls, you get on a long call, phone doesn't get hot. It's just a great calling experience. So to wrap things up, 1 month later with the iPhone 14 Pro Max, I can tell you that this phone overall has been fantastic. It's definitely worth getting if you're coming from like an 11 Pro Max, maybe even a 12 Pro Max if you want some of the juicy camera upgrades and you want a little bit better battery life, a smoother display. It's a good upgrade from 12 Pro Max as well. The only thing I don't like about this is that it's not really a major change to the iPhone line. If you're looking for something that is like groundbreakingly different, this is not going to be it. I think we're going to see bigger changes next year. And if you have a 12 Pro Max or 13 Pro Max, and you're just not, you know, super excited about any of this, you're easily going to make it until the iPhone 15 Pro Max comes out. And maybe that'll be far upgraded. But seeing as they just launched the island over here, the dynamic island, I don't think that's going to go away so fast as next year. I just think the iPhone 15 Pro Max is going to be a much improved iPhone 14 Pro Max, but we'll see. I just don't see Apple changing this out that fast, you know, making a totally new design in just 1 year. They don't usually do that, so we'll have to see. Other than that, 1 month later, pretty happy with the purchase, pretty happy with this update. Let me know what else you want to see on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. I have the Pixel 7 Pro in studio now. We also haven't compared it yet fully to the Z Fold 4 and some other phones. We're going to wrap out the year by covering all the best smartphones that we covered on this channel this year. Subscribe if you haven't already. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you on the next one. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.